So week 2 predictions for this week. Let's do it. Brent, I want you to start. Clemson travels to College Station. Game day is going to be there. Jimbo Fisher faces an old foe. Clemson taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. Who you got? How's it shake out?
Clemson in a landslide. I know Absolutely. They have Jimbo Fisher, but they do not have the talent on campus yet to compete with what Dabo Swinney's going to bring.
If you read my article on loudopinionated.com, I wrote this, and it's totally with Brent's segment. Even Jimbo Fisher can't save Texas A&M. Clemson wins easily.
He might save it within time, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a bad coach. I'm just saying.
No.
I never believe in A&M. It's much like, you know what's funny? We talked trash on Mark Richt, and Mark Richt did the most Mark Richt thing.
I told you it was going to happen.
Yeah,
I called it.
By LSU. You did call it. You did.
I didn't call it to be as much of an ass whipping as it was, but I called it.
Yeah, neither of us were on brand there. I was like, I thought it'd be a good defensive game. Well, I was wrong. Good defense on one side of the ball. Actually, Miami did score 17 points, so I was kind of right.
Yeah.
Colorado taking on Nebraska. We talked about this. This one's interesting. I will take the lead here. I think that this will be a good football game. I think Colorado showed a lot against Colorado State. They won that game easily, 45-13. There's a lot of weapons in that Colorado offense. I have nothing to go from with Nebraska because I didn't play, but it'll be interesting to see these two offenses clashing. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a homer and take Nebraska in this game, but I think Nebraska wins in a close one. Very close game.
I also believe that I'm going to take the homer approach, and I think Nebraska takes a close one also. I think that even with not having a game played last week, that the energy of that stadium and how everything's been going, it's going to be electric in there again, and I think that that's going to help them an absolute ton. They're going to be able to feed off that. I think that's going to help create issues for the Colorado offense. They're not going to be used to playing in something like that. Like, you can't find that outside of Washington in the Pac-12. You don't see stadiums go crazy like that. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a close one.
The energy game was nuts, but are you going with the Huskers?
Friends that were there. They said it's I think the Huskers win a close one. I'm going to I think it'll be like a 35-28 game. I don't know. But I think it's going to be a very close game, but there's going to be some offense in this game because I don't think either has a defense that's really going to be able to stop.
Yeah, especially for Nebraska because it's essentially their first game. So they're going to get all the first game mistakes out of the way in this one.
Agreed.
So the Chip Kelly Bruins, who lost 26-17 to Cincinnati this past weekend, they'll be traveling to Norman, Oklahoma, and I feel like running into a buzzsaw the way that Oklahoma was playing against FAU. Who you got? How's it shake out?
Oklahoma by a lot. UCLA is going to be struggling for the next couple years, I believe. Even with Chip Kelly there, it's going to be a rough go for them. They're in California competing against a resurgent USC team, and man, I'm just saying Jim Moore did not leave them very well off. So
no. And Chip Kelly is running a totally different program than Jim Moore was.
Agreed.
So
it's gonna be rough.
I would absolutely agree. I think Oklahoma is in a really good spot. I think they got lucky. Well, I wouldn't say it's luck. I think Bob Stoops was very wise in picking Lincoln Riley as his successor.
I also believe so, yeah.
I think Lincoln Riley is going to be there a long time, and I think Oklahoma is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Big 12 for a very long time. They win easily as well. So Georgia, after beating up on Austin Peay, you're going to travel to South Carolina to take on the newly ranked Gamecocks. Who you got? Well, no, it's my turn. I'll go first.
It's your turn there, Bob.
I think Georgia wins this one by 10 points. I don't I don't want to say they blow them out, but I also don't want to say that South Carolina keeps it very close. I think a 10-point victory for Georgia. I think Georgia picks up where they left off last season, even without Sony Michel or Nick Chubb. Jake Fromm, I think, is still going to keep that offense moving. And I think at the end of the day, before the season started, I said they were going to Alabama for the SEC title and then probably again in the playoff.
I kind of agree with you on that. I think this is going to be a close game, but I also think that South Carolina has a very good shot of upsetting Georgia in this game. Low key, South Carolina has been getting better and better each year, and they're in a weak SEC East right now. So this could be a huge game for them, and I think maybe Georgia looks down on them. And I think this is going to be my upset of the week. I think South Carolina stuns Georgia, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day because Georgia will roll through the rest of the conference and still make it into the playoffs somehow.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice. All right, so now we're moving along to the Cy-Hawk game in Iowa City. Iowa's coming off a 33-7 win over Northern Illinois, a good Northern Illinois team, beat Nebraska last year. As we said, Iowa State, they scored a touchdown against South Dakota State before the game was canceled. This game's always, for the most part, is pretty fun. It was one of the better games of last season. Who you got?
I am going to take Iowa State. I believe that they will actually come out and kind of take it to Iowa. I wasn't really super impressed with Iowa's offensive line in their game against Northern Illinois. Usually you see Iowa come out against a team like that, and they kind of push them around, and they didn't at all. They really didn't.
I think it was like 3-0 at halftime.
It wasn't much, to be completely honest, and they really didn't do a whole lot with it. I mean, it was at one point I looked going in late, I believe fourth quarter, it was 27-3 or 24-3, something like that, and it wasn't as much of a game as I honestly expected. I thought that Iowa, building off of last year, would come out and kind of throttle a Northern Illinois team, and they didn't. I'm being honest with you. I was shocked that they did not actually pull off any and maybe they weren't showing a whole lot. I mean, Kirk Ferentz is very known for that. And yeah, you're right. It was 3-0 at halftime. That means that the offense was not good, so.
Iowa Western Sargent got a touchdown.
Did he get a touch? Did he a receiving touchdown? Possibly. I didn't see him carry one.
He was running the ball.
He didn't get one on the running side. He had 12 rushes for 40 yards. Looking at the stats right now, I was actually just going to bring that up.
I saw that he scored.
He might have got one on passing. Nope, didn't do it there either. Other weird thing, I didn't see anything from Nick Easley, another former Iowa Western alum who's a senior this year for the Iowa Hawkeyes.
So, do you have a prediction points-wise? Do you know how much they're going to win by? Or?
I'm going to go with a 33-12 game. I don't think Iowa's going to actually hang in this game. I think Iowa State's taking it.
Wow, that's impressive. I didn't expect you to think the Cyclones are going to beat them down.
Just looking at how Iowa played against Northern Illinois, I know that they're a decent team, but they had one rusher that technically you take away his 140-yard rush, and none of their rushers had over 3 yards or over 4 yards a carry. So I can't think that they're going to be that great. I mean, you went up against a Northern Illinois team and you couldn't push them off the ball to get 5 yards a carry. Like, as a whole, they had a 4.4 yards per carry average. No big plays there. Their starter, Nate Stanley, went 11-23. I mean, not even 50% passing against Northern Illinois is not that good. You should be able to outclass them.
Good team.
Talent. They're good, yes, but they're not like that good, man. Like,
they're a good MAC team.
Yeah, that's great. Did they play for a MAC championship last year? No?
I
Okay.
don't think so.
No.
They
Akron
could
beat
have.
them
I
out,
don't know. I
actually.
don't care.
No, Akron beat them out in their side. So I'm just
Oh, well, there you go.
being kind of a dick on that. But no,
Uh,
it's I looking at what happened, maybe they changed it up. Maybe Ferencz just decided, hey, we're gonna go real vanilla, I guess, but vanilla for him should be blowing the defensive line off the ball and moving it. As we've said
Run the
before.
ball.
Run the ball. Like, you know?
I think that I have no choice, and I have to pick Iowa State.
Yeah, you might end up in a casket if you don't.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. I would have picked them anyway. I think that last year, I think we learned a lot about this Iowa State team. You know, this is a team that surprised everyone and beat Oklahoma and beat them in a shootout. They outscored them. Like
Yep.
it wasn't, and you saw the next week they beat TCU, so it wasn't necessarily a fluke.
No.
And I agree. I think Matt Campbell's got the right group of kids. I think he's got the right system. I think it's going to be closer than what you predicted. I could imagine Iowa State winning this one because it's such a close game last year. I could even see him maybe going to overtime, but I think Iowa State wins by like a field goal. I would say a very, very close game, and Cyclones take it. All right, so moving along, here's a interesting Big Ten Pac-12 matchup that I'm a big fan of. I'd like to say Michigan State taking on Arizona State. Both teams. Michigan State had almost a shocking upset last Friday night.
Utah State
stunned them almost. It was like a Penn State situation with App State. But they pull it out. Arizona State did pretty well in their game. I can't remember who they played. UTSA.
Yeah, they weren't very good. Utah or Texas San Antonio.
Yeah, they're bad. But Herm Edwards, this is his first real test. It's in Tempe. It'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. I think Michigan State still wins, and I think you're going to see it. It's hard to say where Arizona State is at because, yes, they beat UTSA, but UTSA isn't very good. Yes, they went to a bowl game last year, but I think that Michigan State wins, I would say, by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I would fully agree with you on that. I think it's at least 2 touchdowns. At least. It's Arizona State's still struggling to even find a quarterback. Manny Wilkins is doing a decent job for him right now. I guarantee you Michigan State's coming off this pissed off about kind of a real soft showing against a Utah State team that usually is pretty decent every year. They've had some ups and downs the past 3-4 years. But, I mean, Arizona State literally came to Iowa Western and plucked one of our quarterbacks before spring training started, spring practices started, because they are that, like, there's no depth down there at quarterback. Outside of Wilkins, they're kind of really it's really light. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I agree. I think it's going to be a 3 touchdown game. Arizona State loses by 21 at least.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I agree. I think Michigan State will be very focused. So this will be a fun one. Adding to the rivalry, we saw this last year. Penn State takes on Pitt. I think we have a similar situation with Penn State, like we saw with Michigan State. Who you got? How's it shake out?
Penn State crushes them because I think that Pitt is actually worse than Appalachian State is. I'm a Pittsburgh guy, and I kind of fall. I mean, obviously, I'm a Nebraska fan, but like as you know, and maybe everybody else will start to know it if I'm on this podcast. Pittsburgh is kind of life for me. Pittsburgh sports, especially pro sports. But Pittsburgh, Penn State players were asked, in the last week about, what do you guys think of, the rivalry? And they're like, what are you talking about? It's not a rivalry. We're going to go in and spank them. That's what we do every single week. So it's fine. Every single year now.
Oh,
Like, it's what it was. Like, this used to be a rivalry, but it's not anymore. Look at it as the same thing as a Nebraska-Oklahoma, and Oklahoma coming up to Nebraska. And look, where's Nebraska been the last 5-10 years? Like, oh, did you compete at times? Yeah. Did you have some good players? Yeah, you did. But you're not good right now. You prove it to us, And Pittsburgh has to do that. Their coaching, their players, they haven't been good. They lose out on a coach. I'm losing my mind right now. He's coaching at Wisconsin now. Ever since he left.
Narduzzi leave?
No, Narduzzi's still there. He's the one who's there now, but it's Wisconsin's coach. Why am I?
Was it Chris?
Yeah, Chris. That's where he was at prior. And when he left, Narduzzi came in, and he hasn't done a real great job yet. I'll be honest. It's not been great. So
no.
I think that, especially with how much that Penn State's probably going to want to show out a little bit, they're gonna come in and crush Pitt.
Get ready, folks. It is the upset of the week. Pitt has found ways to do this the last 2 seasons where they've been completely outmatched and they've won games. They beat Clemson 2 years ago. They beat Miami a year ago. It's happening again. Penn State got exposed by Appalachian State. Pitt wins this on a last-second field goal. And, I'm just making this pick for the laughs.
Absolutely not going to happen. Do I think Pitt will upset somebody? That's fine. No, that's fine. You take it. But I do think that Pitt will upset somebody, but it will be in the ACC. Not in the non-conference.
And then Penn State rebounds and still wins the East. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
They probably still.
Last pick always goes to my alma mater, your soon-to-be alma mater, Iowa Western. They are taking on the number 11 ranked Hutchinson. What am I talking about? Pentecost. Not Penn State, Pentecost. How do you feel about this one? Since you're so close to the team, how do you feel about it?
I think that the team is starting to sort of come together. They are still ranked number 2 in the nation. They came off a 26-20 win over Iowa Central, who has definitely been rejuvenated underneath Coach Montalto now, coming over from Ellsworth to Iowa Central. They need to get better on offense and fast. The game on last Saturday, Iowa Central held the ball for over 40 minutes in a 60-minute game.
Oh, goodness.
The defense was just gassed, absolutely gassed. They blew a 26-6 lead and let Iowa Central come back. They got the ball with 1:58 left, 26-20, and they ended up forcing a 4-and-out technically. But a lot of the players, it was a stupid, humid day. We luckily got our game in before the crazy weather that kind of killed Iowa State, Nebraska's games in this area. But they're going into a game against Hutch, who is last year's game was quite the barn burner here in Iowa at Iowa Western at Titan Field in Council Bluffs. Hutchinson lost on a false start penalty with the ball at the 3 with 7 seconds left. They had a false start, which they had no timeouts, and it requires a runoff of 10 seconds of the clock.
Runoff.
So they lost the game because they did not execute properly. They do what they do every year. They're a team that likes to pound the ball. So if you were a Nebraska fan and you watched Hutch, you'd be like, yeah, man, they run the ball because that's all that they do. They pound it. Now, this year's kind of the same. I honestly think that that Iowa Western's going to go in and they're going to kind of do the same. They're going to try and run the ball, and I think the offense is going to pick the defense up after having the defense, save them last week. So I think that my prediction today that I made for at school with us at the Iowa Western staff that travels and covers the games, I think it's going to be 42-19 Iowa Western.
Wow. Well, I'm obviously going to pick the Reavers. They're my alma mater. So. I'm going to pick them, obviously. So, yeah, I have them winning.